Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining me for another episode of With Love Soleil. I want to look a little bit today at emotional intelligence. I feel like this is something that, as long as humans have existed, and as much as we are all emotional beings and sentient beings, I think that there hasn't been enough conversation around ownership over your own sensitivities and your own emotionality, and realizing that your emotional fragility, we'll say, is not anyone else's responsibility. And I think this comes a lot into the kind of conversation altogether around being a conscious person. That consciousness itself, or to be a conscious person, ultimately means that you are aware that you are your own unique source and form of consciousness, that you're having your own experience. And in doing so, you're having your own experience alongside 8 billion other people who too have a different experience and whose inner landscape varies case by case. And so when you start to realize that, then the conscious person says, okay, so that means that I can sit next to 10 different people. We can go through the exact same experience and we'll have 10 different versions thereafter of what happened. And that is because we're all always filtering reality through our own biases, through our own lenses, through our own experiences, and especially through our emotionality. If you are emotionally provoked by something, by someone, by an experience, by a world event, then you're going to be somewhat skewed in how you tell the story of what happened according to your inner landscape. And the conscious person is the one who can separate. I think emotional intelligence and consciousness, or being conscious of your own reality, kind of go hand in hand, because the conscious person can separate, okay, I felt this way about it, but if I'm going to tell the honest truth about the experience, then you tell it from a more objective point of view versus how it made you feel, right? And I think that the levels of consciousness, go through varying stages and degrees just due human development. And so, yes, there's kind of like the me, my phase. In fact, there are people you talk to and you kind of notice when they talk, they sort of reference themselves as the center of all of it, right? It's like me or my, or if you share something about yourself, they're going to relate it to themselves and kind of bring it back to themselves. You may notice the conversation often ends up back at them because they're sort of in that phase of consciousness where they're really not even realizing they're only relating to reality in me and my. Children do this too, right? And I'm not passing any judgment to the age of the person who does this, because a lot of people do. There are plenty of grown adults who really are still in the sort of me, my phase of consciousness. The world still sort of revolves around their experience and how they felt, how they feel about things. And that is their truth. And that is how they tell the tale, and they're not even present with the fact that maybe there is an objective reality separate from their unique and exclusive reality. So that's, one level of consciousness, so to speak. And then as you go up, you can start to see how it kind of shifts to like almost like you evade self, and it's all about other people. So you'll notice how people talk, it's only about other people, and they're kind of like in the external, and there's like no reference to self at all. It's almost like they're not even like present with their own inner experience at all. It's just kind of who them out there did and how it happened out there. And then above that, then I think is sort of like being the awareness that, yes, I do have my own unique experience. I have my own emotions. I feel them. I'm present with them. I allow for them, because it's not that they're not to be taken seriously or to be, totally discounted. Like, emotionality has a huge role in one's own humanity. But the master says, okay, I realize I'm feeling this right now, but I'm not going to let it separate me from objective reality, because there's still an objective reality happening outside of my experience. And I don't want my emotions to taint reality. I don't want to even bring my emotions in if it's not, appropriate or say pleasant for other people. Because the truth is, we all have our days, right? I mean, especially as women, definitely, and I assume men too, have your days where maybe you're not in like your highest vibration, or you're not in your best space, and you're present with that. And so that, any little thing is going to kind of irk you where it may not, normally not, or if you're not in the right vibration, or if you're not around people who can let you just be where you are, you're going to just have to feel like you're faking it, and you're not just in your sort of normal home frequency, so to speak. And so if you're present with that, you can make decisions according to where you're at on that day. Now, it's not to say you can't clear some of that, and you probably can. In fact, it's maybe if it's kind of that present for you, it may actually be asking for you to look at, well, where is this actually coming from? Why I'm in this space when life is otherwise quite good, you know? So there's always like an inner reality happening simultaneous to the outer, and the emotionally intelligent person is aware of this, and they can be present with and have ownership over their inner space just as much as they are present with and somewhat accountable for their external reality, right? So I think that this is a really major key in changing the world, dare I say, because when people start to realize that their inner landscape and their emotionality is a real thing, and it's present, it's there, and it's gonna really affect how you move and how you do what you do on any given day, then you can take ownership over that, and you can process it and tame it to the point where it's not, you know, eluding you from actual reality, or it's not causing you to create a reality for yourself that you don't want. And, you know, I think of this often when I think of the men who must sit at the round tables and decide they're going to go to war. I can't imagine myself personally sitting at a table and deciding amongst others that we're going to go to war. I feel like that has to come from an emotionally dysfunctional place, you know, and it's ironic that I mean, if we're being honest, it's definitely mostly the men who are making those kinds of decisions, you know, the leaders of the world, the ones who kind of pull the trigger, so to speak, on going to war are generally men. And I feel like there's this major disconnect for really all world leaders, to be honest, in their own emotionality. Because I think if they can set things down, set their own being worked upness or ego or whatever is behind that like decision to go to war, we wouldn't be going to war. You know, I think if emotionally regulated people were leading our countries and leading the world, we would live in a very different world. That's just what it is, because we wouldn't, the populace, the people wouldn't be sort of at the helm of their emotional dysfunction, right? They wouldn't be, you know, teetering up to World War III if both parties were equally emotionally regulated, recognizing that they may have some deep-rooted emotionality towards other certain groups. And so maybe they shouldn't even be the ones making these decisions if you can't regulate yourself before you sit down at the table. So when I think about people of the future, when I think about leaders of the future, I'm thinking about people who are emotionally regulated enough to say, I need to process my inner experience of this before I can make a decision for the world or for my people. I'm thinking about people who, or maybe can even just be present with, you know, this is really present for me right now while I'm making this decision, and I want to speak on that, or at least think that to yourself, so that way you're not making decisions from that place. You know, I think emotional regulation and emotional intelligence is the next level of humanity. I think that there's actually a very intimate relationship between spiritual intelligence and emotional intelligence, because when you can be present with your own emotionality, then you can let that kind of stir you into the higher reality that's always present, right? Because the other piece of emotions is that, yes, they are connected to more. And if any of you are a highly sensitive person or an empathetic person, surely you've felt the weight of others, you felt the weight of the world. You maybe battle even with carrying other people's stuff. Sometimes you notice if you hang out with someone for a while and you leave them, you're feeling their stuff, or maybe even before you hang out with them. I know for me, that was something I really had to train myself on as a healer, because days in advance of a session, I would start to feel my client's stuff, and not even, you know, kind of in my initial stages, not even realizing that's what was happening. So over time have learned, oh, okay, that's them, that's information, cool. I would like to save this information for later, because there's this free will component to the energetics and emotionality of reality, to say, okay, I realize this is something I'm going to be working with a client in 2 days from now. So I'm not quite ready for this information to come through. You have to like really work energetically and emotionally like that. Otherwise, as an empathetic person, and this is part of the reason I prefer to lean into the version of being a retired empath because I don't want to carry anybody's stuff anymore. And as a healer, you actually do the people that you work with a disservice when you carry their stuff, because the weight of whatever they're going through is for them to meet whatever depth they need to meet in order to learn the lesson. So yes, there's going to be information that comes through your energy. And as an energy worker, that's just how you read, to whatever you need to be working on with this person. But you have to realize, A, it's absolutely not yours to carry. And B, that you can pretty quickly dismiss it. If you, in fact, the term that my Reiki master teacher taught me was, if this is not mine, please take it away. So you start to realize you're not obligated in any way to carrying anybody else's stuff. And you certainly don't want to then add that to the stuff of your own stuff, and then you have too much stuff and you're not even in reality anymore. We all know people who are so inundated with their own unfelt emotions that they are no longer connected with reality. I think that, to me, that's kind of like the core of what narcissism is. It's that they're so trapped, I want to say, and I mean, it feels like a poor word choice, but that's kind of what's coming through, in their own space, that they literally can't see past their noses. They literally do not realize that if I'm sitting next to you, we're having two completely different experiences. Partly because with the narcissist, their experience is very much tainted and relative to what's happening inside of them, and they have a very interesting way of polishing over reality to fix whatever they think it needs to be fixed in their mind so that they can feel better about who they are. If anybody's ever dealt closely with the narcissist, you know what I'm talking about. But to me, that the narcissist sort of epitomizes the one who really has no even at all consciousness around the fact that other people are having other experiences too, and that theirs is not the only one, and that especially that that there's maybe an inner world happening parallel to the outer, and they're not doing any of that math, right? So I say all this to say I'm inviting us into a place where we start to really focus on mastering ourselves emotionally. I think that will be such a key, and I want to say for women especially, but to be honest, it's really all people, because we all feel emotions. We all feel emotions. All of our realities are moved and swayed in certain ways and in certain days by our inner landscape. And when you can be present with that process, you remain more connected to reality than the one who's always in their emotionality and projecting that onto other people or onto reality, or sort of looking for things to kind of affirm how they're feeling inside, or something to be mad at. You always know, I mean, Twitter is a great place to find people who are always looking for something to be mad at or to project their inner reality on. And if we stop doing that, if we start to become more aware, more conscious as a people, then we can find the beauty in our inner landscape and how it flows and changes and shifts all the time, that emotions are always moving, and some of them are not fun, right? That's just an absolute truth. There are moments and days, maybe even a period of days, where it is absolutely not fun, and you're at the bottom of your barrel and you can't even pretend, you can hardly turn on to even be around other people. We all have, at least a day at a time, a half a day at a time, where that's the case. And so when we can learn, okay, this is true, this is what it is for today, maybe there's some work to do around it so you can clear some of that out and not be so bogged down. But if maybe you just need to sit in it. I think that's the final component of emotional regulation, emotional intelligence, is that emotions are not always only to be avoided. Sometimes they're coming through to help you heal something, or because an experience or a memory or something that needs to clear out of your emotional baggage is ready to go. And so it's starting to kind of unveil itself inside of you, and you're feeling away and you don't even know why, nothing happened, but you're just kind of in a funk, whatever it is. Or maybe your emotions are saying you're not in your purpose enough. You're kind of in the monotony of your day-to-day life and you're not feeling purposeful. And so your inner reality is starting to be hey, you need to do more stuff that's going to bring you joy. There is an inner conversation that's always happening. And that, to me, is emotional intelligence, to say I'm present with that conversation. I don't let it rule me, although I know that there are some emotions I need to feel, but I'm not going to project it onto other people. I'm not going to seek to find a way outside of myself to validate or affirm what I'm feeling, because I can affirm it for myself. This is here. It's where I'm at today. And it's not good or bad, right? Emotions, all things we want to label good and bad, especially emotions, because there are some that are much heavier than others, right? The joyful days and the happy days where you're just in a good mood for no reason, like that happens too, of course. And we project that onto our reality, but fortunately for others, that's a net positive. Whereas, your heavier emotions being projected out is not usually positive for others, especially when they're having a great day and you're not, right? So if someone's up here and you're here, and you're like, don't, maybe that even the fact that they're up here is irking you because you're here. And so, it's like, and this is where interpersonal relationship, I feel like, is such a powerful key and code and tool for this kind of shadow work and for emotional regulation, because the intimacy of being one-on-one with someone, or having one person that you come home to every day, or you talk to every day, or that holds you accountable in your own humanity, really helps you navigate these spaces and be able to communicate, like, I'm just off today and I don't want to like put that on you, or I'm feeling this way, so I just want you to know that. So if in case you catch wind of that, it's not personal to you. Like, just being able to communicate your inner space, communicate how you're feeling, sometimes relieves it. Like, oftentimes it just needs a witness. It just needs you. It just needs your own witnessing to say, I'm feeling this right now. Okay, boom. It's like freedom. Like, oh, wow, I just needed to say that. And then suddenly it's kind of softer, maybe, or more gentle, or maybe there's just kind of like a more smooth transition from feeling that way to not feeling that way. But all in all, let us all move into and commit to this space of consciousness that says, I'm aware that I have my own unique human experience happening all the time. And simultaneous to that, there are 8 billion other of their own unique human experiences in other people happening all the time. And simultaneous to that, there is objective reality. And these are 3 different things. I think, even having grown up with a sister who was very close in age to me, she was 2 years older. If she were to sit down and talk about our parents, she would describe them much differently than I would, right? And we were connected at the hip. We were extremely close most of, if not all of our childhood, right? Until maybe high school, when we started kind of moving a little differently. But even then, we were very, very close for, we raised in the same household, and still would describe our childhood much differently than each other. We would talk about our parents differently. We lived out 2 completely different human experiences, as is the case according to each of our unique journey and what we needed, and the experiences that came in, and our relationship to our parents and one another. Like, it's all going to be different for every person, even if you are sitting next to each other, even if you go through everything together. It's still different. That is the beauty of the spiritual path. And when you can accept that and start to then incorporate in your emotionality as a beautiful, informative component of the spiritual path of self-mastery, of consciousness, of self-realization, then you're going to get somewhere, right? You're going to be a lot more enjoyable for other people when you can be emotionally in tune with yourself and like know when to ebb and when to flow. And you're also going to just be way more in tune with reality when you recognize that your inner reality is not always exactly the same thing as objective reality, that there are 2 separate things happening. And so if you want to speak honestly about something or relate to someone honestly, you really have to find that objective reality, because otherwise you're just going to be projecting yourself onto the world and then telling the story and keeping yourself looping in your own story according to your own projection. And we don't want to do that anymore. It's time for humanity to grow out of that. It's time for humanity to grow out of the me, my phase. Narcissism, I even hate that word because it's just whatever, but it's true that there are people who literally cannot see past their own experience, that don't have any understanding that there are many other experiences happening parallel to them and an objective reality. And they're sort of sunken in their own world unconsciously, right? Just deep in the unconsciousness. I think unconsciousness is almost the best word to describe anyone who has no understanding at all of what I'm talking about, or maybe stuck in the me, my phase of spiritual and cognitive development, or doesn't separate their inner world from objective reality. And there's a lot of unconsciousness. Unconsciousness is the true plague. Unconsciousness is the true plague. Unconsciousness is crashing down the world as we know it. America, definitely. I mean, America, the empire is like definitely tasting its end. And all in all, just on a global scale, unconsciousness is running crazy rampant because people are not in touch with themselves. They're not present with their own reality. They're not above and aware of their reality or the actual reality otherwise. That's what the conscious person does. This is what awakening does for you. It separates you. It kind of drags you through the mud. If you've ever had an awakening or a dark night of the soul, which often, go hand in hand on some level, drags you through the mud of the ways that you are separate from yourself or avoidant of yourself or not true to yourself or honest with yourself, right? It's going to like show you every single mirror as quick as it possibly can to help you see yourself. And there's more. And then there's the moreness. And then you have to figure out what the moreness is and attune to that and allow your energetics to be in all of it. Because awakening is in no way denying your own humanity. Awakening is in no way denying your own emotionality, that you are still human. There's a lot of people who think they've awakened, and they have, surely, but in their stage of awakening, they're like above all of it. The people who like don't come down to their human at all, they're like totally only in the 5D and, speaking telepathically and astral projecting and all that stuff is great, but you got to come back down. I feel like the final stage, or at least for now, the final stage of awakening is embodiment. To be your full character to its fullest extent and be present with that role. Know that you are a divine role player in a divine play orchestrated by a power we can only know of as God, and which is so much more than we can even fathom, understand, or contextualize. So let us all shift and commit in a new year and in forevermore to being more conscious, being more emotionally intelligent with ourselves, being more emotionally regulated, finding the gap between your experience and reality and letting there be two different things there, and not projecting our stuff out, making decisions based from a more neutral and based place and not emotionally, dysfunctional, or maybe you're in your trauma response or whatever other places that our lovely leaders like to make decisions from. Like, let's clear that out. Let's commit to clearing that out and let us, as the energy workers and the grid workers of the planet, decide no more. No more. We're no longer going to be like at the helm of other people's emotional dysfunction. We can even properly and appropriately recognize when that's happening, if it's safe, obviously. And even with our world leaders, we have to recognize that they are not the healed people, unfortunately. It would be great if they were. It'd be great if they were the ones like emotionally regulating themselves and making decisions from those places, but they simply are not. And this is what I say when I say we're taking the world back. I mean the conscious folks, the people who have done all the work, and now we're no longer going to go to war for their other people's inner war. Like, we won the war. We have won the war. And so we must maintain that stance and let the highest vibrational timeline do what it does to place us where we need to be appropriately and properly in the upper echelons of being human. Okay. I hope that makes sense. Let me know if you guys have any questions about that. That was present for me. And I've been talking a little bit more about emotional intelligence recently. So I felt like I wanted to bring it to y'all. So yeah, let me know. And thanks again, as always, for tuning in. I will see you guys next time. Much love, everyone.